This is Kayak Flyer. I'm your host, Sean. Unfortunately, Adam got arrested again this week. This week he was in Reno, and the cops came and picked him up for fly fishing by using a squirmy worm. So I don't know. I didn't know you could fly fish in Reno, but evidently squirmy wormies are illegal. So we're going to need you guys to throw him some bail money. And we're hoping to get some bail money from Bajuco Flats Fly Co. Offers the most affordable custom fiberglass fly rods starting at $125 and always guaranteed for 3 years. We're also going to have to get you guys to start buying those cutthroat furled leaders with promo code Kayak to save 15% because I don't think fly rods alone are going to get it. These leaders are going to change your life. No more having to unwind leaders or straightening leaders. These drop straight out of the bag. They're guaranteed for 3 years to explode on you. That's right. You come back on the show and listen to Mike. He tells you he designs them all to explode at exactly 3 years. That way it's not a lifetime leader. Otherwise, it would be. They're absolutely wonderful. We also want to throw a big shout out to Tennessee Trailers, outdooradventuretrailers.com. We have a big surprise coming for you next week on the 20th. If you go over to their website or their social medias on Instagram at tntrailers.com, you're going to see what the big surprise is, but we're going to have some exclusive content on the Kayak Flyer YouTube page as well as on our Instagram, and it's going to be really awesome. And last but not least, don't forget about our good friend Ethan at stoneflynets.com. These are 100% handcrafted nets made right here in the United States with some of the most unique materials you're going to find. They're absolutely beautiful to hang on your back when you're wading a stream or to hang on your wall. But tonight, we've got Mr. David Trubin with us. You are a fly fisherman, a man of my own heart. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Anytime. And you've got some pretty interesting stuff on your YouTube, on your, your Instagram channel. And the name of your Instagram channel is NC_on-the-fly. So I'm assuming you're out in North Carolina.
Northwest North Carolina. Yes, sir. Born and raised.
I've got a couple of friends. I've got one friend that lives out in North Carolina on the Outer Banks. And then I've got another friend who lived out there for quite a few years while he was in the Navy. So that's a nice place to be.
Yep. They say what you will about the South, but nobody retires and moves up north.
Exactly.
That's what we say anyways.
Ethan from Stonefly Nets was, I think he was in South Carolina for a while. So that whole Carolina region is pretty well represented with fishers. And you guys have all kinds of fish out there too. How close are you to the salt? Are you still in the freshwater area?
Freshwater area. I'm in Northwest, so I fish when I go to saltwater fish. I typically go to Wilmington. It's about a four-hour drive. You can get the saltwater slam there pretty easily. Drums, specks, flounders. We get obviously being on the Outer Banks. There's a good run in the Gulf Stream out there to fish. So
yeah, that's a nice place. And you do a lot of regular fly fishing too for trout. I'm assuming smallmouth and musky.
Yeah, pretty much all the species that we have around here. A lot of bass in the mix, a lot of trout. I do travel out western North Carolina around Boone, Asheville, quite a bit and fish out there for trout. Spend a lot of my time in Southwest Virginia as well. That's where the muskies come into play, and more of our smallmouth bass.
So I haven't caught a muskie on a fly. What is that like?
Neither have I. Funny story about that. I've only caught muskies conventionally. When I started fly fishing, I've only been fly fishing. I think I'm coming up on my 4th season. I jumped into it with aspirations that I want to catch a muskie on the fly. And I had a few buddies, they fly fish and they're like, you got to start with like trout. So I said, okay, got a 5-weight, started throwing poppers. I think the first fish I ever caught on the fly was it was a largemouth out of a pond on a popper. And I was like, this is my jam. This is it, man. The fight, the typical fly fishing testimonies. Yeah, I just sort of fell in love with it, and I kind of worked my way up, and I instantly fell in love with tying. I am a little bit of an artist. I have an interest in painting and stuff, so that was kind of a gateway for me to get into the sport. I have to have some kind of artistic outlet, so fly tying was kind of that common ground with fly fishing. So when I got into fly fishing, it was very shortly after that I got into fly tying. And I started tying big musky bugs before I ever had anything over a 6-weight. I did try to throw those on the 6-weight. It didn't work out very well. But yeah, eventually I got a couple 10 weights, started fishing with those, and eventually started chasing muskies on the fly. I've caught them conventionally, just never on the fly. To date, still don't have one. I've been very close. My buddy Sam Scott. Do you know Sam Scott?
I don't think so.
He's with Blue Ridge Muskie up stationed out of Lynchburg, Virginia. He's also on the Vibe team. He is one of the best muskie anglers on the East Coast. And if you don't believe me, go to his Instagram. His numbers don't lie. That guy got me the closest, man. We had one, right there at the net, and then Sam threw his phone in the water by accident trying to net this fish. Yeah. And I've had a couple. I fish mostly on the New River. The water's good this weekend. That's where I'll be. So I mostly stay all year round. I'm mostly on the New River.
So when did they make that river?
Huh?
When did they make that river?
Well, no, man, it's not new. That's
not new. Oh, it's not new. It's just called the New River.
Yeah, oldest rivers in the world. Between like that, the Nile, and the Amazon, they think it's one of the oldest.
Really?
Yeah, it's an interesting river if you've never fished it. Very wide in a lot of sections, very shoaly. Great smallmouth bass habitat. You'll find muskies where you don't think you'll find them, because sections where it's ideal muskie habitat is sort of comes and goes. It's not very consistent good muskie habitat. It's a lot of rapids, a lot of faster stuff, but there's a good population in there though.
That's neat. I know we've got a few lakes over in southern Illinois you can muskie fish, but that's being here in southeast Missouri. There's just not a lot of opportunity for that. You've got to go quite a bit further north, or some of the bigger lakes over in Illinois.
Yeah, you do. Y'all got the Megatron Browns though.
Yes, yes, we do. We just had the state record caught about 4 hours from here, and the guy was on a fly rod using a power bait worm.
Well, that line between spin and fly gets smaller and smaller, and some people, dare go there. But
yeah, well, I have known when I'm behind to throw one of those on my fly rod just to catch up with my buddies, but I don't tell them I'm doing it.
I did. One time years ago, I was like, "Hey, I wonder if I can throw a rooster tail, or it's a little Joe's fly. Those little things. I was like, I want to throw this on the 6-weight. It was a couple years ago. We were at one of those. My buddy's dad paid for us to go to like one of those pay streams where you just catch like big fat pellet fed rainbows. I was like, I wonder if this will work. And I hadn't anything all day. I was throwing woolly buggers and threw some mayflies. I didn't know anything back then. I was like, man, this isn't working. I threw that thing on. Yeah, I caught a little tank on that thing.
Oh yeah. It's funny because a Pistol Pete has that little prop on the front. That's sort of like a little spinner on it, and it's just funny how they deviate between what's one thing and what's another.
It's the shiniest fly you want, and they're like, they're like a rooster tail. They're like, oh, I gotta have that.
Yeah, it's amazing how they behave. I've got a good friend of mine that he's getting into fly fishing this year. We finally worn him down, but he gets into my fly box and he buys all these just inline streamers, or inline spinners, and he puts them on my flies and throws out my woolly buggers and basically makes a rooster tail.
I've seen guys do that, man. And in the same respect, there's spinning guys that will take and they don't fly fish, but they'll tie woolly buggers and stuff. Yep. They'll dead drift it with like a power bait or something, or a trout. It's kind of funny. They'll cross over.
Yeah, when it comes to trout, I don't think anybody really has any pride. I think there's just a lot of a dirty, as one of our friends said, dirty worm fishermen out there, and I think a lot of the fly guys when it comes to trout are dirty worm fishermen too.
Oh, yeah, some of them are.
Yeah. So it just cracks me up. You mentioned Vibe there. That's one of the things that I saw and connected up with you. I don't have a Vibe kayak, and I've never been in one, and I was wanting to talk to you a little bit about those just because I'm interested in them. I think they look really cool. The versatility, I know I was looking them up. There's one that seems to be a SUP hybrid, which looks really nice. But I thought maybe we could talk for a minute about that. You're talking about one of your friends catches muskie in those, and I guess you've caught them on conventional gear in a kayak. So we could talk about what that's like catching a muskie on a kayak, and about those kayaks in particular.
Yeah, so the Maverick 120 is what you're talking about. That's what I primarily fish out of. It's a kayak stand-up paddleboard hybrid. So basically, you have the deck of a paddleboard. You have that flat profile deck, and then underneath you have the hull of it's more similar to a kayak. It's a dual hull, so it's not quite like a kayak. It's a really interesting vessel, but I have found for my style of fishing and what I do that it's no kayak is perfect. I'm a firm believer in that, but it's really close for me, not for everyone, but yeah, it's a pretty blank canvas. We have a foam deck on it, so you get a little bit of traction there. There's gear tracks on either side, front and back and centered. We have tie downs, so you can really rig this boat up solo. You can rig it up tandem. I have two daughters. I have one that's 6. She's been on a kayak since she was like 4 or so. Yeah, so she'll come with me. You can hook up like 2 hero seats or really any seat that can fit on the deck and go through a tie down. You can set it up that way. I tend to fish with my Yeti Tundra 35. So I sit on it. I'm a big eater, so I always pack a lot of food when I go. I'm that guy that's like, hey, let's stop and cook. I got some flank steaks and peppers and onions. And my friends are like, no, let's fish. I'm like, let's take a break for a little bit. I keep plenty of beer in there as well. But also it makes for I can have a seat. I can have a cooler. I can also have a standing platform, kind of all in one. And from my career of kayak fishing, I've evolved more minimalist. So I like basic necessities. I don't take 9 rods like when I was tournament fishing. So it really suits me better where I can have a couple of fly rods in the back, a couple of conventional. I run 4 Yak Attack Omega Pro rod holders. So I'm a firm believer in that rod holder.
Those are great because you can put any rod in them.
Yeah,
and that's what I've got on my boat are those because they're just phenomenal. You can put your fly rod in there, and when you're spin casting, you can switch back over, put your spin caster in there when you're fly casting. Because there are times, and I'm not going to lie, there are times I'm on the water, and I just can't get a fly down deep enough, fast enough to get to those fish, and so I need to bust out a spinning rod, and I'm not ashamed.
I'm not either. I do both, especially on a kayak because I'm mostly chasing bass when I'm on a kayak. A little bit of both. I actually run 2 of the regulars in the back that don't have the 2-point. I don't know what you call it, the levers where you can adjust it. So I'll run 2 flat down like this, and then I'll run 2 bent over this way. So my rods are going horizontal, and for a fly fisherman, that's vital. Most kayak anglers lean towards vertical rods, and when you're throwing just conventional, that's not a problem.
Right.
When you have to worry about a back cast, all of a sudden that becomes a problem. So I kind of found when that came out, I was like, oh, I'm going to try that. So I bought one from my buddy's shop up on the New River, Timmy Dixon, and tried it out. And I was like, oh, this is money for, doing a conventional and fly.
We have the main river I fish has a ton of trees. We sort of have the Ozark sidearm here because of all the trees. And so nobody casts the conventional style. Everybody comes out here and casts to the side to get under everything, and trying to cast off a kayak to begin with is difficult unless you're standing up. And it sounds to me like you've got one that you can stand up on. A friend of mine's got a different manufactured SUP hybrid, and he's got the same deal. He's got the cooler, and then he's got a Larry chair, and he sits with his feet up and drinks beer, or he stands on the cooler and fly casts. But that makes it really versatile. And with me, and I'm awkward and 6'3" and 250 pounds, and standing up I've got a Radar 115. I can stand on it as long as I'm sitting on a little shelf of rock that's holding me steady. But if the water's moving, I'm falling in 95% of the time. So I've really been interested and I should have bought what he has. I didn't. I should have. I kind of kick myself for it now, but I like the creature comforts that my boat has to offer. But that vibe, as I look at it and the price point that it's at, I'm really leaning hard into picking one up because they just look like they're made. How wide are they, I guess would be my next question.
They're 33 and a half is what Maverick sits at. So what makes it a little different, like I remember I talked to my team manager, Michael Davis, about the Maverick before I got one. and was asking about the stability. And he said, the Yellowfin 130 at the time was our widest boat. It's 13 long, it's 34 wide. So I thought, yeah, he was talking about, what compares stability, because he's a big Yellowfin 130 guy. He said the Maverick's more stable. I was like, how? It's shorter. It's not as wide. He said, you get on one, you'll know what I mean. It's really the low profile of that boat. It's not a kayak. It's not a stand-up paddle. It's kind of in between. But that profile is like a paddleboard. So it's really low to the water. You're not sitting up off the water a couple inches. You're right on the water. And your draft level on that boat is stupid. It's like I've never been that shallow in a boat.
Yeah, that's the other thing is we get, here in Southeast Missouri in the middle of July, we can get some pretty shallow water, and you can be in ankle deep water and you can be in a 30-foot pool in a matter of 100 yards. And so draftability is something we really look for in kayaks.
Yeah, we don't battle that quite as much over here on the East Coast, but I've seen, I follow Montana Wild and a couple other channels out there in the Midwest area. It seems like y'all battle that a lot more than we do.
It's feast or famine with water here. We get a ton of it in the spring and we get a ton of it in the fall. And most summers, you're dragging your kayak a good, 25 yards at a time and fishing for maybe 500 or 600 yards and then dragging 25.
And you'll get some crazy runoff, don't you? Like when the snow melts out in that way? Yeah.
No, we don't. Where I'm at, we don't get a lot of snow, but any kind of rain. Because of we're in the Ozark Plateau, so it's everything. It's not a mountain range; it's a valley range, and so everything runs down those valleys, and then just flash floods are immediate, and they are super high, super fast, and then they're gone. That's one of the things. I was out a while back, stayed all night out at the river. We had a really good rain. It wasn't anything really to worry about. But one guy was like, oh, the river's blown. You're not going to be able to fish it for another 3 days. And literally the water was down by the time we got out to launch our kayaks, lower than it was the night before. The water was crystal clean.
That's great.
Yeah, and it just comes down and it's out. And that's all there is to it.
That's so foreign to me. Like we don't deal with that. It makes you wonder like how fish behave, and do they recover quicker then?
We slayed them that day. It was one of the best days on the river. I mean, they had come up, when the water come up, they got in a feeding mood, and they just stayed in that feeding mood, and we just went apey with them.
Oh, yeah. See, even here, like when I'm on the New River, the recoup time it doesn't take real long, but then you go just down the mountain, like just over, like the Blue Ridge runs through it. So you come just down that mountain into where I'm at, and you come to like my home water, which is like one of my home waters. It's right up the road. It's the Yadkin River. It's got a great smallmouth bass and spotted bass population. That river blows really easy. It stays muddy easy, and it doesn't recuperate very quickly at all. That thing's blown. It's going to be blown for a while. Like we're eyeballing being on the New River this weekend. I think CFS in that river right now is like 4,000. Somewhere in there, and we like it between 2,000 and 3,000. It'll be there probably by the weekend as long as we don't get too much more rain. Yadkin, on the other hand, it'll take another week before that thing's ready. So
now, see, the Castor River that I'm on is naturally spring fed, and then most of the tributaries that come into it are all spring fed. So the only time it gets dirty is when there's a huge runoff. And there's not a lot of farm fields. There's some cattle fields and stuff like that, but as far as farming agriculture where the ground's tore up, there's not a lot of that around the area, because the only two things they can grow in Bowling County are rocks and marijuana, And
we get a lot of that farm runoff on the Yadkin.
That makes it dirty.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that. Almost the entire river up in my area doesn't run through anything city like in like the maybe 20 miles of water that I fish. It's rural. And that's all it is. It's all farmland. A lot of tobacco, targets.
And see, this is all. It's either all rock / cow fields. That's pretty much all it is. And then the bottom of the river is all completely rock, so it doesn't stir up anything.
Yeah. Yadkin's a sandy river.
Yeah.
I'm not a big cat fisherman, but it's apparently a stellar flathead fishery.
Yeah, and see, you're lucky to see a catfish in the Castor.
Yeah, here in North Carolina, they're everywhere. We want to make a trip to go try to catch some catfish on the fly or from the kayak this year. Might make that happen sometime.
Don't underestimate catching them on the fly rod.
Oh, I have. I caught one. Probably the biggest catfish I've caught in a couple of years. I didn't weigh it. It's probably like 6-7 pounds though.
Yeah.
Caught it on a double deceiver with a deer.
Oh yeah.
And I watched him eat it. He came up right to the bank and T-boned it like a bass would. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, is that what I think it was? And I felt the fight. I was like, that's a catfish.
Oh, it was insane. A buddy of mine caught one and we didn't weigh it. It was huge. It was wider than he was across the shoulders. I mean, and it's a pond and he feeds them every night.
Yeah.
But I forget what he threw out. I think he threw out a little orange woolly bugger.
Mm-hmm.
And it nailed it. And he had just bought a shadow reel, which they were brand new when they came out. And he had a Temple Fork Outfitter 6-weight rod. And he played it for an hour and a half. And I went to net it. And when I went to net it, I leaned over and the bank gave way. And this was early October. And I went headfirst into the pond.
Uh-huh.
That was fun. My wife had to drive home and get me new clothes. And it was an adventure, let's just say that. But it was a good time. But catfish on a fly rod's a whole new experience.
It is fun. I've caught a few. It's kind of hard to target them, though. It's not really a consistent, thing you're going to be able to do.
Yeah, you're never really targeting catfish. You just sort of get them.
Kind of happens. Yeah. I probably caught more catfish on a bycatch than I ever have like targeting them. Like I go to like Lake Norman and like, oh, we're going to throw out these, this type of shad that, they like. We go out there and fish all day. And Lake Norman's notorious in North Carolina for having giant catfish. It's a really big lake. I've caught very few catfish there.
Yeah. I've got the Elks Lodge has a lake that everybody brags about the catfish.
Mm-hmm.
Never caught one out there, and it's like I don't catfish. Now my buddy Brian, he's been on the podcast before. He can catch a catfish in 5 minutes wherever he goes.
He's got that touch.
Yeah, as long as he can sit the rod down. You take him to like a trout park where he doesn't have to do anything but set the rod down on the ground. He can catch something. But if he's got to stand there and cast, he's out of luck. That's why we're making him fly fish now. We're tired of getting outfished.
Yeah.
He's like the net head master,
Nice.
Casts the net head out, locks his reel, puts it in the holder, sits in his kayak, and bang, he's got one,
People got it. Some people don't.
Oh, it's so funny. And, you were talking about tying flies, and I've decided I like to tie flies more because I'm always coming in last end on the catch. But everybody's using my flies, so every one they catch, I get half of.
Yeah, you get credit for it. That goes right in your
Yeah. So as long as I catch one fish, I caught more than anybody else because I got a half of all theirs.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah. That's usually what people tell me when they use my flies. They're like, you get half of that. I'm like, well, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. So, but it's funny, and I know I'm jumping around here, and I apologize, but I have.
No, you're fine.
I don't have adult ADD. I've just got a short extension span. But going back to the vibe, then we'll come back to tying flies because I can talk about that for the rest of the show, and I want to talk about this some more. Talk about hooking a muskie on a kayak because I've hooked redfish and sheep's head and stuff like that. But what kind of a ride is it when that muskie gets a hold of it and takes a run while you're on that kayak?
I've never experienced the ride on a kayak. Like I said, I've lost a lot of muskies. I've only got one to my name in my hand.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you'd hooked up on them on a kayak.
I hooked up on them. I have really bad luck. I'm owed a really big muskie. It's owed to me. It's you'll lose a bunch, but I feel like I've had a really bad run because I study them hard and I work really hard for them. It just doesn't turn out in my favor.
Yeah, I know redfishing. Everything I've been told, and when I've done it, what, 4 times now, I guess. And the first time I was using conventional rod and reel, and my buddy told me to set my drag really light. Then when it hits and starts to run, tighten the drag and then reel. And so I was using shrimp, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what I was doing the first day, first time out in this swamp water. My friend said he saw a shark, which I believe because we saw him later on. But it's like this little protected bayou right there in the Gulf. This damn thing runs, and next thing I know, I'm screaming line. I tighten down the drag. As soon as I get the drag tight and start to reel, it's still pulling drag really hard. I'm reeling, and I'm just being pulled toward it.
Oh yeah.
It was absolutely insane, and one of the best times you can have on a kayak by yourself.
Oh, I'd imagine. Yeah, muskies don't fight quite the same. You don't really, I guess, in fly fishing we talk about the eat all the time, especially streamer fishing. Muskies, it is really about that eat. It's kind of like they're very similar to browns. You're not in for like a crazy fight.
Okay.
As big as they are, pound for pound, salt's king. A red is a red's like a smallmouth. You're not really getting that with a muskie. It's just getting that eat. It's
Okay.
pulling that evil fish.
Okay.
You're not in kind of exciting fight. So it's not to say that they're not fun, but it's not what you might think they are. They look like a torpedo. They're not quite like a torpedo.
Yeah, that's what I would assume is once they hit, they just take off and it'd just be a ride. But like I said, I've never fished for them, so I can't say.
Typically, depending where you're fishing for them, I mean, I'm sure you know this, muskies, it's not good to target them in warmer waters where they might be a little bit more active because you tire them down and you can ultimately kill them that way. Anything over like 70 to 74 is too hot for them. So when you're fishing for them, ideally in these colder waters, if you're a catch and release fisherman, they're a little bit more lethargic than they are in their prime, which might be in the spring or summer. Don't hold me to it. I don't know where they're the most active, but you catch them in the winter, you're going to get a lot of big head shakes, and that fish will come up to the surface almost immediately. He's not going to take off, and you're wait till you see him. You hook a muskie, you set it into his mouth, you're going to see him in a couple of seconds. He's going to come right up and do like that right there, and you'll see him.
Sort of like a tarpon, huh? The way the videos show the tarpon come up immediately.
Yeah, that's when you lose them. They have a really good mouth and very, very strong fish, so they do shake quite a bit. They're good at throwing hooks.
And I'm going to say this, and we're probably going to get some hate mail at Kayak Flyer Podcast at gmail.com. But I started fishing this year with barbless hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's stupid.
I don't fish barbless. I do have some barbless flies for the rare occasions that I throw a nymph.
I lost so many fish. I lost so many fish this season. It was I lost I had them right there to the net, and they would shake, and it was gone.
Yeah. Some guys the barbless guys really swear by it, and I mean, in theory, it makes sense that that's where the term angling comes from. Before we had barbed hooks, you had to position your rod right to keep that hook, to keep that fish pinned. I think the style of hook, your gap. I think there's a bunch of things that play into that, but it's not really something that I'm into. A lot of the fish that I chase are bass, musky, walleye, and trout. Trout, I'm a little bit more understanding, but primarily bass, I'd say year-round. Smallmouth, they have really hard mouths. I don't have a reason to go barbless.
And you know what? I've went out to the shop and I welded barbs onto every one of those size 10 hooks.
That's a bit of pretty welding gear.
But yeah, the trout I threw the trout flies, and there was just, man, they threw them constantly. I didn't land a single one at the that I hooked up with those flies, and I'm sitting there kicking myself. I'm like, why is this?
Yeah, I think it's an art that I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to practice it. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I hooked up to them, I got them to the net, but when I was trying to hold the fly rod back and lean down to get the net and get all stretched out, and then some slack got in the line, and boom, they were gone. So
that's right out.
Yeah.
I hear it's nice when you get a hook stuck in your hand, though.
Oh yeah, that would be easy because then you just pop it out.
I've had that happen quite a few times, and I wish they were barbless.
Yeah, I accidentally hooked one of my friends, and about 3 weeks later, he accidentally hooked me.
Accidentally?
Yeah, right in the leg, too. Oh, bad times. So we were talking about, well, this is fun. Huh? I guess we're going to have to, yeah. So we, I hit the wrong button, so we forgot to actually record the podcast. So now we're going on the recorder. We were recording here. We weren't recording here.
Oh, okay.
So that's fine. People can join us in conversation here. We're here with David. Technology is grand. We're doing a multitude of things. So we'll just go ahead and pick up with the podcast in progress. So we were talking about the Vibe kayaks and some of the things that those things are known for. Especially, you said it was the Maverick 120.
Yeah, that's mostly what I fish off of is our Maverick 120.
And what's the, I guess, when it comes down to it, you said it drafts really, really well. How would you compare it to other kayaks you've fished out of?
Well, I haven't exactly measured my other kayaks drafts, but I've noticed that I can get into shallower water with my Maverick. And again, like we were talking before we recorded live, it's that hull design, that stand-up paddle design. But we do have the hull of a kayak, but like a paddleboard. Also, tracks like a kayak. Feels like a paddleboard, tracks like a kayak. So yeah, we can get into really shallow water with that thing without losing the tracking ability that you'll find on a normal stand-up paddleboard that you see on lakes or out in the ocean. But yeah.
Well, that's kind of a cool idea, and I assume they've got several different kayaks out there that are more traditional as well.
Yeah, everything stems kind of from the Seaghost 130. That was the first big poster boy kayak for Vibe, you'd say. Our 130 or 110 are probably our most popular kayaks. We do offer the Yellowfin 100, the Yellowfin 130, which is a solo tandem boat. You can run it either way. We have the skipjack, and we got the shearwater coming out, of course. So we have a few different options. The Maverick's just where I find that my style of fishing, I adapted well with that boat, or it adapted with me rather. So,
how did you get? You said you were a tournament fisher for a while. How did you get into that, and why did you stop?
Local tournaments. I kind of started my stop tournament fishing spill is one I like to tell. I started tournament fishing with local tournaments up on the New River. Quickly got into the KBF, started traveling. Had a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great people doing that. The reason I got out of tournament fishing is just for me. I didn't really, you put a certain amount into something that you're interested in, and you get something out. For me, I wasn't getting out what I felt I was putting in. I was taking time away from my family, spending a lot of money, a lot of traveling. And it's not really monetary. I just wasn't getting a lot of fulfillment. Simply put, I don't have a lot of fun when I tournament fish. It is very competitive. And if you're a competitive person, I grew up an athlete, so I naturally, adapted well with the competitive side. I just didn't have I didn't enjoy fishing doing that. It was fun for a while. I still do. Like, I'm signed up for a tournament here in April in the New River. I still do it some. I just don't do it as much, and it's not my prime focus. As opposed to before, I was looking out throughout the year and setting up dates and, got to be here, got to be here, got to be here, got to be here, going to do this, And I just found that it kind of took the fun out of it for me. I have more fun, like most people, on weekend trips, floating the river, drinking a couple beers, catching some fish. You might not catch any fish, but you just have a good time in that sort of fellowship with your friends and time on the water. That's what it's all about.
That's something too. I know I've got a friend who was down in Louisiana for a long time, and he didn't have a lot of friends down there because he had moved there for work. Mm-hmm. And he got into a bunch of these tournaments, and now he's sort of back, and he's like, I sort of want to get some of these tournaments going. And I'm like, well, you can do that, but you can also, drive the hour and a half and go with us every weekend. And he's sort of like, well, yeah. And it's one of those where it just sort of becomes where are you going to get the reward out of it for? I haven't been in a tournament, and I really don't know if I'd want to try it. I think there'd be a lot of undue stress with it, trying to switch baits, having multiple rods, trying to get everything going on. We've had a couple of FLW tour guys on here in the past, and it's work. You're not going out there to fish and have a good time. You're out there working, and that's a whole nother deal.
Oh yeah, it is that way. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy some of that. I have a good buddy. His name's Morgan. He grew up here in town with me. He lives up there on the New River where we fish. So me and him are kind of like we're tournament buddies for years, and we still fish like our annual. We have a fall brawl and a spring shootout up on the New River. We always fish those. He was texting me, I'll go up there and stay with him, and we'll hang out and tie baits and talk fishing all night before. Never go to bed, and then wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go, set up our trucks at the portages and fish. And we do have fun. I definitely enjoy the smaller tournaments more than the bigger ones. There might be some factors about that I can't really like point out. Might be the size, the traveling, especially this last year. They shut down a lot of the big tournaments in my part of the country that I used to travel to fish. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2017. The New River KBF in West Virginia had like the biggest turnout of the year. And the next year, they canceled it. Why? I don't really know. A lot of the tournament fishing appeals more to lake fishermen, which is understandable. Kayak fishing naturally kind of goes with rivers a little bit more. I understand the gravitating more towards lakes. Maybe that was why. But they took out a lot. Even the lakes, they took out a lot of the places that we used to fish. KBF, and there's just not a lot going on in my area. And I'm not traveling to Kentucky to fish a tournament on a kayak. I'm just not doing it.
We had Kristen Fisher on here the other day, and then we had Daryl Curtin on before that. Do you know Kristen? Christine?
I don't know her personally, but I've seen her stuff. She's kind of the queen right now.
Yeah, she is, and she was gracious enough to come on the podcast, and we talked a lot about what it was like. And she's fishing. I guess there's a new bass anglers tournament.
Yeah.
And so Daryl Curtin, who was on the show, one of my friends, he's fishing all 5 of those. And I think he's Wisconsin, California, Georgia. I can't remember where the other ones are. But she said she's fishing 2 or 3 of those. But to think, and that's what she does for a living.
Yeah.
That's her job.
That's what she does.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. And, it's always like do what you love for a living. Excuse me. But how do you keep, what do you do when you're not fishing when that's your job? That's sort of always a question. I should have asked her that. I didn't. But it just seems interesting to me. She says she goes out and she musky fishes and she ice fishes.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I saw of her. I think a couple years ago when I first kind of caught wind of her, it was a lot of Esoc fish, ice fishing. She was catching some big pike, big musky. And then she kind of got into the tournament scene and hit it hard.
Yeah. When I spoke with her, she was getting ready to leave for Florida for a tournament, and she was snowed in Nebraska where she had been ice fishing.
That was a Hobie tournament, right?
I think, yeah, because she fishes for Hobie.
Went down there to that.
Yeah. So that was an interesting look at, driving 14 hours and getting snowed in before you could leave,
One spectrum to the other. I've never quite experienced it on that level, but.
Yeah, that's got to be a shock to the system.
Yeah, I got a bunch of buddies up in PA, Russell Johnson, a lot of those guys up there in PA on the Susky that they'll fish up there and on Erie and St. Clair, fish tournaments up there. And then they'll just drive all the way down here and fish the New River, and they kind of travel around. And there's a lot of change involved in that. I'm a little outside my realm of knowledge. I've never done that, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, it would. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, because I was an idiot and forgot to hit record because our conversation was going so well, hopefully the video will be posted to Kayak Flyer on YouTube. But I wanted to go ahead and give a quick shout out real quick. And I was going to ask you this question. Whenever it comes to hauling all your toys, I like to use a Tennessee trailer from OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com. And there will be some very exciting news coming out next week that has to do with those guys. And next week, our podcast hopefully will be sort of live on tape from down there in Soggy Daisy, Tennessee. I also wanted to give a big shout out to our buddy Pablo with Bajuco Flats Fly Co. He offers the most affordable custom fiberglass rods starting at $125, always guaranteed for 3 years. Help out your friend from Puerto Rico. Head over to Bajuco Flats Fly Co. on Instagram. Also wanted to give a big shout out to Ethan down at stoneflynets.com, handcrafting some of the best nets you're going to find at the best price you're going to find for nets made out of exotic materials. They can even be engraved and customized. These nets are 100% made in the USA and are absolutely beautiful. Head over to stoneflynets.com. They look as good on your wall as they do on your back. And last but not least, we got to reach out and hit the OG supporter, Mike at cutthroatfurledleaders.com. Save 15% with promo kayak. You're going to love these leaders. No more are you going to be fighting with a monofilament leader that's got memory. These things drop straight out of the bag. You can get them for anything you're fishing, whether you want a sinking leader to a floating leader to a nymphing leader with a built-in indicator. These are some of the best leaders. Head over to cutthroatfurledleaders.com and save 15%. So when you guys are hauling quite a few kayaks when you go on those trips then, right?
Yeah, usually in the back of a pickup. Nothing fancy. No trailers really. I gravitate between a Chevy Silverado and my 4Runner, just depending. Mostly trucks. That's how we haul.
Yeah, I was the sort of trailer guy or the truck guy for a long time, and my truck died. It was just over a year ago that she passed away on mile marker 117. Let's take a moment to reflect. Yeah, so I was looking for a 4Runner, and those things are ridiculous. Have you priced a used 4Runner?
I've owned quite a few of them. That's like that's my bread and butter's a 4Runner.
My God,
They're not to go sell them. They're not so great when you want to go buy them. Yeah, they hold value.
I bought a Lexus GX 470 for probably 10 grand less than what I could buy the closest 4Runner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, this is insane. And the Lexus still has locking differentials and everything else you need. So anyway,
Tacomas are way worse, dude.
Oh yeah, any of the trucks are horrible.
You'll see 97s going for like 10,000 or more.
Oh yeah, it was insane. I was looking at one that was a 99, and the guy I think he wanted 9 grand for it. And he'd put a lift on it and some stuff, but it's like, dude, it's still a 99 with 195,000 miles on it. And you're wanting 9 grand for it.
Yeah, that demand is what pulls it. People want those Toyota trucks, so what drives the prices up.
Oh yeah, so I'm tickled pink to talk about the new trailer next week. So we won't have to have.
I'm going to have to listen to that because I'm in the market for a trailer. I really want to go that route.
Well, we had Dave on in a previous podcast if you want to listen, and then next week, of course, we're going to be down there picking up the trailer and talking with the guys, and then we'll have, as soon as I'm allowed, we'll have some drone footage of the video of the trailer on the YouTube channel. Sweet. And driving around and doing some stuff with it, and then all summer long that'll be pretty much every fishing trip will require a drone shot of the trailer. You know
these days, man.
Yeah, and they've got one of the really cool ones they've got, and I really like it a lot. I don't camp enough because I'm fat and old, but they've got the Jaunt, and it actually has a tent on top of it, so you can actually camp tent above.
That's cool. Kayak trailer. That's like a CV tent.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Don't want to get off subject, but I'm a big hammock camper.
Yeah,
Hang Con's a big thing every year. And I saw it was like last year, the year before, the guy that hosts Hang Con, just really quick, he fabricated a trailer where it can hold kayaks, but it's also it's rigged to where you can have a shelter and it hangs hammocks. I thought that was super cool.
See, I've been looking at buying a jungle nest with the mosquito cover.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with those?
I don't use them. I'm familiar with them. I'm looking at a new Sierra Madre setup right now. Okay. As a different.
Well, I just thought for that, I don't remember how much they cost, but they're not overly expensive. But to throw into the kayak, into the dry, the dry area, or throw it in a dry bag in the kayak, and to do an overnight trip, I just thought that'd be the berries.
We do a bit of that up this way too. We're eyeballing a trip up here in the next couple of weeks. We like to do kayak camping trips. Quite. So yeah, we do mostly hammock. We try to stay minimal. We don't go minimal on the beer. We always bring a lot of beer. My buddy built some floaties for his Yetis to kind of mount behind his kayak, and they kind of float along too. So yeah, we do some of that. That's a lot of fun when we go on those trips. But
yeah, that's one of the things is one of my friends wants to do the Devil's River down in Texas.
Oh, that'd be dreamy.
Well, you have to like bag up any waste, like body waste.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to take empty jugs.
Really?
Because you can't leave anything behind. You can't bury it. You've got to take bags. And yeah, it's a whole, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, no. There would be so many gallon jugs floating behind me and so many empty beer cans.
I mean, I'm a big conservationist. I understand, but I mean, what's wrong with, that's natural. What's wrong with that?
I don't know.
Don't think natural byproducts beside the Devil River.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder what the fine is for pooping down there.
I don't know, but evidently it's like 26 miles if you go on the one stretch. So you're committed once you put in.
Yeah, you're holding it or going in a jug.
Yeah, and you have to have one of those beacons, those emergency rescue beacons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I probably would have something like that anyways, because from my understanding, that's a pretty remote river.
There's no access. Yeah, there's no access to it, so you're pretty much in there once you get in.
Yeah, you're in it for it. So.
Another good river that's about that long is the Buffalo River down in northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about that?
Never thought about that. The white is on my my list. I've got a buddy. He's on Instagram, CJ Lords. He's from North Carolina. He's actually over there right now with Steve Daly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you follow Steve Daly's stuff, you'll see a lot of that guy. That's kind of one of my bucket lists is the white.
We were down there this summer, took the kayaks down, checked all the generation. They were supposed to stop generating at 8 o'clock on Friday.
So how far are you from there? Are you close?
I'm about 4.5 hours.
Not too bad. That's better than like 17 or whatever I am.
Yeah, it's not that far. And, we went down there with the idea of getting out there before generation, floating, fishing, and getting back, before the water got down to us. Mm-hmm. And the SOBs at the Corps of Engineers started generating at 2 a.m. And so we went down on Saturday morning. The water was higher than what it was on Friday night because they were generating more. And so we wound up going to the Buffalo. We floated the Buffalo, which was absolutely beautiful. Great for smallmouth bass, bald eagles, deer, you name it. We saw it while we were out there. And then the next day we floated the Crooked Creek down there, which is supposed to be phenomenal for smallies. But the problem we had, and we talked to a biologist that was down there, for some reason that weekend they just weren't hitting. And we were just sort of in a really bad slump. And they're normally known for having 16 to 8-inch smallies. And we caught a lot of 10 to 12-inch, and I think we caught one 14-inch. But other than that, it was really just not working that day, that whole weekend, according to the biologist who was doing the survey. So, but we'll go back down again next year. We've already got it planned.
Hopefully they won't be fasting.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was because it was just an odd thing. But hopefully the water, we won't have as much water this winter, so they won't be generating, or as much water this summer as we had, so they won't be generating. We'll actually be able to get out and kayak that a little bit. And then I know a couple of other guides down there other than Dally, and they've given me some inside information on some different things down there that I want to hold back for the next podcast that we do down there. So, but it's a neat place. Cotter's a really cool little location.
Yeah, that's kind of where I want to go, is that area. I know of a lot of guides in that area. That's a notorious part of the White River.
Yeah, it's one of the most popular, and there are people that will argue that it's the best brown trout fishing in the United States. I know some guys from Montana will argue with you.
Yeah, you get the Michigan guys, the Montana guys, even a group of North Carolina guys that argue it. But I mean, the white is just an exceptional brown fishery. From observation. I've never been on it, but
they're pulling fish out. And what's so funny is we were down there and the fog was just so thick, we wouldn't be able to put the kayaks in anyway, really. But these guys would just run these drift boats up the river and then they would just drift back down, and guys were just hooking into monster browns the whole time.
We do that sometimes on kayaks, when we don't want to portage anywhere, we just want to spot hop. Yeah, we'll put in, paddle up river and come down.
Yeah, it was wild just to watch these guys and how they did it, and it was like a parade at the boat ramp. I mean, and I'm gonna tell you what, we took 3 people out in Louisiana. We've been using the same guide down there, and it's cheaper to go red fishing for 3 hours with 3 people than it is for one person to do a half a day down at Cotter.
Oh, I don't doubt it. So what do they run down there price wise?
It was looking like $500 was the average
for a half a day or full day.
For a half a day.
Half a day.
It was high. I mean, I thought it was really high.
I don't. Yeah. I guess that's about the norm out there. I mean, it's pricey, but supply and demand. That's a high location for brown. So
our guy in October when the bull reds are running, we go down there. It's $100 a person for 3 people.
Really?
Yeah, it's friggin' nice.
That's not a bad price at all.
Yeah. Calm Water Charters down there. He is a great guy. I hooked into a blackfin, and he wouldn't let me bring it on the boat. I guess insurance purposes, but it was the highlight of my trip this year.
Big blackfin. Ooh, can I take a quick break real quick?
Yeah. Go ahead. We'll leave this going, but we'll pause this. So for those of you, this is sort of a awkward moment. We started the podcast because we were trying to do a live video, and I looked over and the recorder to record the podcast audio was not recording. So I'm going to try and marry these up, and hopefully it's all good. But if not, you're listening to a podcast that is already in progress, and you can find it over in a few days from when this drops over on YouTube, because I'll have to do some editing on the video. I apologize for that, but things happen when you get a little wild here. In the meantime, I want to bring you up to speed on the Grudge Match. We have photos for the next Grudge Match. I just need to upload those. It's it's another fly from River Road Creations. They have been great with us, and we've gotten another little care package from them, so we're going to be doing some more flies from them. Fly Tires Dungeon is sending us a little care package. So we're going to keep this Grudge Match going. We're not sure if Adam's going to be allowed to participate anymore. He's actually not with us tonight because he got arrested in Reno for fishing with a squirmy wormy. Evidently, they don't appreciate squirmy wormies in Reno. I don't know where in Reno there's enough water to fish, but it may or may not have been a fountain in front of a casino. So, I can just jabber on whenever somebody has to, because I don't want to stop this and try to figure all this out.
Oh, yeah, I don't want
If we get going too long because I forgot to do this, just tell me. It's fine. I'll figure something out. I work in media for a living. Surely to God, I can figure out how to marry the 2 audios.
There you go.
So just dump the audio out of one and put it in front of the other. So, I know the people on YouTube are probably mad at this, but the people on the podcast missed it. So I just wanted to go back over. You're at NC_ on the fly on Instagram, and you're also part of the Vibe Kayak team. Did the Vibe Kayak team come from the tournament fishing, or was that?
Yeah, that's kind of where they found me. Michael Davis, our manager, he sought me out and, offered me the spot, and they had, there was a voting process. But yeah, it was from KBF where they found me.
So where would somebody like me who drinks beer and occasionally catches fish and has a podcast, who would give me a kayak or a really deep discount on a kayak? And when I mean deep, I'm talking like 90, 95% off. I'm a working man here.
Let me know when you find it, though. I'm pretty good at talking and drinking beer myself, so maybe they could. No.
Well, hell, Adam better be careful. If he doesn't get his ass out of jail, we may have a new co-host.
Oh man,
Poor Adam.
License. So Adam's traveling this weekend?
Yeah, he's in Reno, so I guess he's going there to shoot a man just to see how it feels.
And fish squirmy wormies?
And fish squirmy wormies in fountains out in front of casinos. So
you can catch more than a ticket with a squirmy wormy out there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh my Lord, he's going with his wife though, so hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Oh Lord, he's gonna listen to this and be so mad at us. So I mean that's kind of impressive. You must have been pretty good at the tournament fishing to get hooked up with,
I was okay. I mean, I did all right, but I guess kind of right place, right time, more so. I'm happy to be a part of the team. I love all those guys over there. I've met quite a few of my teammates through tournaments and events. It's a lot of good guys on that team and girls. We got a few guys on the team.
They didn't kick you off when you quit fishing tournaments?
No, not at all.
They must like you a lot, huh?
I guess they tolerate me.
They tolerate you. Well, I'm going to tell you what. I was looking, I found you on Instagram at NC_on-the-fly, and I was reading your bio and stuff, and I was like, this would be kind of cool to have you on. But one of the other things that really caught my eye, and we briefly hit on it, was your fascination for tying flies.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got some really, really nice flies.
Well, thank you.
So
yeah,
I wanted to.
It consumes a lot of my life. Not a lot, but just enough. I try to tie most every day. I don't always post flies that I tie. I do a lot of experimenting with different patterns. I guess it's kind of. I think Joe Cermelli said it. Are you a Hook Shots fan?
I haven't followed them.
Field and Stream. You need to look them up.
Oh, okay.
Hook Shots, their fishing channel. Yeah, he had said this, and it kind of resonated in me that every fly tire, you don't really want to be. You don't tie flies to make money or anything. It's sort of the self-satisfaction that you want to design something that you can stamp your name on. That this is my fly. Kelly Gallup's Sex Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
All these different patterns. We all kind of want that, so that's something that I'm always working towards. With my tying, there's more of that than there is posting on social media, and I kind of have some things in the works that hopefully will come together for the future. But yeah, something that I really like when I can't fish. It's like I said before, the people on the podcast listening live didn't hear this, but I'm an artist, so and I work a 8 to 5 desk job, so I have to have sort of an outlet to express myself in. And I kind of found when I started fly fishing that tying really came hand in hand. It was very second nature to me. Fell in love with fly fishing. I wanted the gratification of pulling a fish off of something that I have crafted from natural and synthetic material, something that I created. And if you've never done it, you don't quite understand it. But those who have done it know exactly what I'm talking about. And that gratification is what pushes you to do what fly tires do, is fooling that fish.
And I'm looking, as you can see me looking down, I'm scrolling through some of your flies, and one of my favorite flies to tie is the Feather Game Changer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at a couple of pictures of yours.
Expensive fly.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And if you fish in my neck of the woods, actually, Blaine Chocolate, you familiar with him? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Blaine Chocolate's Game Changer. Blaine, actually, I don't know Blaine personally, but Blaine is a Virginia guy, Southwest Virginia. He guides on the New River and the James River. That fly was designed with New River smallmouth in mind. So that's kind of, from a fly tires aspect, North Carolina, we have a lot of purists. We don't have a ton of streamer gurus like me. It's not like Michigan or Arkansas where you have these guys. It's still fairly new in this area, but that is our fly for this region. Virginia, North Carolina, I don't know every fly out there, but I don't know a name bigger than Blaine Chocolate that comes from this part of the country. The game is the fly, and with that, his other flies, his the T-bone, the musky fly. That's kind of, for me, for a guy who chases predatory fish, that's the fly that represents our region on a big scale.
It's talking about predatory fish. Funny little side note here. I was down at the Spring River in Arkansas, which is about 2.5 hours from the house.
Mm-hmm.
Mammoth Springs is right there. So it's one of the 10th biggest. It's the 10th biggest spring in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they've got a dam, they've got a lake and a dam, then they've got another dam, and then they've got another lake, and they've got another dam, and there's a little island, and on the island, uh, Arkansas State has their trout hatchery, and the hatchery for the national park is up above.
Mm-hmm.
So there's browns and rainbows, and there's escapee brooks and cutties, which are very few and far between. And on this island, one side of it gets really deep, really fast, and really wide. The other side is maybe hip deep at the most, and it's just a nice little meandering stream. And the regulations down there, you can keep anything at any size, trout. You can catch it by any methods, whether it's bait or fly or whatever. And I am amazed by the number of people that go down there and sit on the bank and throw power bait into the current. And I'll walk along and cast against all the big exposed rocks because there's a railroad track right there. And so they've got a levee, and then, all the rocks and boulders and everything are down there. And we've caught 90 fish between two people in an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's literally, you can't get them off the hook fast enough, but you're hitting just like you're going to fish for smallmouth bass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you can throw several different types, but woolly bugger or a leech pattern just tears them up, and you just hit along one of those rocks and strip it along, and they really hit down there for some reason. And it's one of the few places I've fished where the trout are like this, but they are extremely predatory in that water. And I find that to be, just like Kelly Gallup throws the big, sex dungeons and all those, and circus peanuts down on the white for the browns. These rainbows are acting just like that, and it's one of the few places I've seen that happen. Have you ever experienced that kind of rainbow action?
Yeah, we catch a lot of rainbows on streamers. And you're bigger, from my experience here. Your larger flies, you kind of gravitate more towards the browns. It's that predation that comes with the brown. They're not a schooling trout. At 15, 16 inches here, sometimes even less than that. They don't school up. They go solo. They find a spot. They're pissed off. They say, "This is my spot." Area awareness is a big thing for the browns here. But as far as rainbows, no, we have some really hungry rainbows. I find a lot of jigging style flies pick up a lot of rainbows. Float recovery, which is more my style. A lot of your deer hair bugs are, it leans more towards the browns. I can put it into an area where I think a brown might, that might be his area, and I can keep that fly in that area instead of a lead-headed fly or something that jigs. You're constantly trying to keep it off the bottom. It's constantly moving. I find that rainbows are a little bit more active. You probably find this too. I think rainbows fight harder. I think they're more willing to chase most of the time. Not to say that browns aren't, but a brown's going to stay in his territory, a mature brown, and I don't find from my experience that they're gonna go outside of their stomping grounds for something unless they're really hungry. A lot of how we catch the big browns here is a territorial reaction. It's not as much a hunger bite. It's a, get the hell out of my area. So they swing at it, and that's how we catch some of these big fish. Rainbows, it's almost always a hunger bite. They're chasing something because they're hungry, and a lot of lead flies is how we catch them.
Yeah, and that's what was so funny about this particular place, because they wouldn't come out if it was in the drift. But if you bounced it off the rock right where they were just like a smallmouth. They'd dart right up underneath that rock and hit it. And, smallmouth are entirely territorial and constantly hungry, so they're firing out and nailing whatever it is that's coming down. And these particular rainbows last year for about 3 months were acting just like that. It was incredible to see and to listen to the reaction of the people sitting on the bank cussing us while we're standing there fly fishing and pulling out trout after trout after trout and throwing them back in the water. And
you said it's faster water in that section, right?
Yes.
I think that plays a big factor. I think it's reaction. They don't have a lot of times, it's harder to, dry fly fishing is the hardest. It's harder to catch a trout on a dry fly than anything else. He has time to critique it. He looks at it, he's casually taking his time eating. You take a fish that's in the current feeding, he doesn't have a lot of time to analyze what he's doing. He sees something, his instincts tell him to swing. They have lateral lines, they can sense things, they swing, and they'll bite things. Whether they're going to eat it or not, that's to be determined for them. But they're going to bite it. It's an instinct.
And that's exactly what it was like down there. It was just so funky and wild to have that experience the way it was. And every time we went down there, we were catching 40 and 50 fish a piece minimum, on a half-mile stretch.
Yeah. Sounds like a fisher. Might need to go out there.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to come over and come down. I know a couple of my friends are thinking about, we drove around, I guess it was last September, we drove around the town and looked at houses to invest into an Airbnb for down there.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was one of those. And then if you get on the other side, you can actually kayak. And I think they even have drift boats down there. And these guys are pulling out browns that are 30 plus inches. And walleye and smallmouth bass as you go down a little bit further.
I get a nice mix of walleye and saugers over there, sort of in the west area.
Yeah, the walleyes are pretty interesting around here, just in the spots that they are. We've got what's called the diversion channel here. So they drained all the swamp of southeast Missouri by building a great big artificial river.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll get striped bass coming up out of the Mississippi River and turn it into that, and they run into a great big waterfall that's when it's not flooded. And so you'll get some walleye in there, you'll get a lot of striped bass in there, just all kinds of stuff. But then we've got those Asian carp now that are really nasty, and so we're really trying to combat those. I don't know if you bow fish or not, but that's one of the things they're really encouraging people to bow fish for those big head Asian carp.
Yeah, the whole carp invasion hasn't hit my area bad. There's a lot of carp in the New River. Obviously, they are invasive. VDGIF don't particularly encourage you, not to discourage you, but it doesn't seem to be a problem yet here.
Right.
Over there, I know it's an issue.
You guys haven't got any of the snakehead yet, have you?
North Carolina and Virginia. Virginia, yes, they've been in the Potomac for quite some time. Look into it. There's a lot of guys in the Potomac area that are slaying, the northerns, and there are some in North Carolina, over towards the coast. Where I'm at, we're not in snakehead territory. I do travel. I can travel 2 hours, sometimes less than that, and go catch bowfin. On the Roanoke River towards the coast, there's snakehead and bowfin, and up on the Potomac, it's really a coastal thing where we're at. I'm kind of right on the edge of the mountains, so they don't venture over here. I wish.
We get a lot of bowfin here, a lot of bowfin and a lot of gar. But of course we don't have any snakehead. But I've read differing reports on snakehead being invasive to the point that they are trying to get rid of them. And then I've also heard, well, they're not that bad, they're not horrible, they're not destroying that much stuff, and so I don't really know, not living in that area.
I will say on that topic, I think that's a very political topic, like anything else. I think you're going to see a lot of different opinions. Ultimately, I look at biologists and say, what do you think? I'm friends with a guy named Ken Hodges here in Mount Airy. He is the fish biologist for this part of North Carolina. He oversees all the stocking and all that sort of stuff, and he works in all parts of the states, but our area mostly. Snakeheads in North Carolina are not a problem, according to them. Virginia, where there's more snakehead, they do not see them as a problem yet. They cohabitate well in this part of the country, it seems like, and they've been here for a while. I mean, you look at, who Josh Dolan is? He fishes.
I've heard the name.
He fishes for him up top. That's the guy that catches giant alligator gar on the kayak.
Yeah.
He's from Virginia. I don't know him personally. I think through social media a little bit, but he's been catching snakeheads here for years. They've been here. You'll go through little spells where you'll hear people talk about them. Oh, they're killing to this, they're killing to that. Talk to a biologist, you'll find out otherwise. Now, what they do require, and I think it's a misconception in my area, is people misread the law. It says if you're going to keep a snakehead, if you're going to take it home and eat it, you need to kill it before it goes off the water because, they can survive out of the water for quite some time. People confuse that with kill immediately when you catch it, which is not the case. in this part of the country. I think that fluctuates. Not your area is not going to be the same as my area. Florida is not the same as Pennsylvania. It really differs. But where I'm at in North Carolina and Virginia, they're not a problem. I just haven't seen anything.
I know. I was talking the other day to a biologist for the Missouri Department of Conservation, and he was giving me a heads up on where to go because I want to catch bowfin on topwater foam frog. It's actually a frog made by River Road Creations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen their stuff. They make cutters, so you cut the same pattern all the time. That's one of their Moorish hopper cutters.
Is that like what you sent me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You shoot me a link to that because I've been looking at some of that stuff. Pat Cohen makes some cutter style stuff like that. But yeah, I need something for foam.
Yeah, and this is just it's a foam cutter, and I just got the STP frog in, and this is if you've been following. I don't know if you've been following our Instagram and Facebook stuff with the Grudge Match. We've been using a lot of these to tie.
Yep, that's when I won that Grudge Match, and I have that fly, and I'm going to catch a fish on it. I'm going to tag you in it when I do. I've got for it.
Yeah. Oh, you won, and Adam mailed you the bodies.
Yep.
And you won the stealth bomber.
Yeah, and a few of the bodies in that one fly.
Yeah. Well, that's I didn't realize that. Hell, that's pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and it's just riverroadcreations.com. And Tony's got a great book that goes through a bunch of the stuff. I'm getting ready to tie a size 14, which I've never tied before, that small carpenter ant, with the foam fly to try and get some of the trout this summer.
Oh, that's cool.
So it'll be kind of interesting. But I want to use that STP frog, and I really want to get a bowfin, or we call them grinnell here.
Yeah, grinnell. That fish has like 10,000 nicknames.
Yeah.
Old dogfish, bowfin, mudfish.
Yeah, but you know what I have heard, and I've read, and I believe it. I'm taking some lemon juice on my kayak with me. They say if you pull them out of the water and immediately fillet them, spray them with lemon juice and eat them raw, they're supposed to be fantastic.
Really? A bowfin?
Right, but if you let it sit, it mushes.
Softer.
Yep.
Now, I know people around here eat some of the snakehead. They say snakehead's delicious. I've never tried it. I would. I've heard some people eat bowfin. Supposedly it's good.
I've tried some of the Asian carp, and it's really good.
Really?
Yeah. If it wasn't coming out of the Mississippi River, I'd eat it more than one time in my life.
That's a fish that I hear both. They're like, that's the ultimate junk fish. And then I saw a guy post a picture of he caught like a 40-incher or something somewhere. It was like a grass carp or something. I'm not a carp fisherman, but he posted like a giant fillet that he barbecued. It looked delicious.
Oh, and I'm gonna tell you what, carp fishing in the fly industry has taken off like crazy.
Oh, it has.
Yeah,
I've never even thrown one at a carp. I've thrown clousers at carp when I see them, smallmouth fishing. But I have a lot of good opportunities to catch them on the New River. The carp fishing is another very underrated thing. It's just really not my thing. Like I said, I'm really into predatory fish, but I'd like to do it because it looks like a blast.
I just tied a mulberry fly for the first time. Stupid easy to tie. Stupid easy. All it is black chenille.
Yeah.
And I put it up on my Instagram, and a couple of my buddies that are big carp guys just loved it. I'm sitting there going, all right, I'm getting all these likes, and I'm looking, and it's all like Carp Stalker, Carp Man 1, Carp Diem.
Carp Stalker, that guy's got a pretty big following on Instagram. I've seen him. Yeah, he's a big carp guy.
Yeah, and evidently catching carp on the fly is like the new big thing, so I guess I'm going to have to try it.
It is. I think it takes a lot of patience because they're really spooky fish.
They are, and your presentation means a lot, and they are really smelly. So like me, I smoke a pipe because my wife, I had to quit smoking cigarettes, and with 3 kids that are always around, a cigar is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll smoke a pipe whenever I'm out fishing or relaxing or whatever. And so if I touch that fly, they're not gonna touch it. So
there's a lot of carp guys that like swear by like Dr. Pepper, Budweiser, oatmeal. This is the mix if you want to catch carp. I just never really got into it, but smell's definitely a factor with them. But I'd like to kind of sneak up on them. We fish a lot of shallow, clear water. I see plenty of carp. Carp scared the shit out of me one time. I swear this thing was over 4 foot. You'll sneak up on the New River. You won't see him. It looks like a rock. Because it's crystal. Ideal conditions. The New River, it can be 15 foot deep. You can see clean to the bottom. We'll see catfish and walleye down there. You get into some shallow spots. You come up on a carp. He doesn't see you come over a rock. He bolts. I was like, oh my God. And he just went under my kayak. Felt like I was in the saltwater for a minute.
Have you ever tried to throw a jig down on a fly rod and catch a walleye?
No, I've never done that. I did sell some flies to a guy up north that used them to catch walleye. He never sent me any pictures, but the guy catches a lot of walleyes. I just think he forgot to send me a picture.
I wonder what that would be like, because I know that you've got a jig on the bottom for them.
Oh yeah, I guess depending where you're fishing, like pre-spawn on the New River, a lot of our walleye move up shallow, and they're a very nocturnal fish. So I know some guys that are really tuned into the New River walleye, and we go out and night fish for them, and you'll catch them. You'll catch them in really shallow water where I'm from. Granted, this isn't the Great Lakes where we fish.
Right.
The walleye are not native here. They were put here. They've been here for years, though. I mean, they're wild. They're producing. But they're, it's not the deep water walleye fishing like most people think. It's a little bit more interactive, in my opinion. You're not trolling minnows as such. We do catch a lot on crankbaits. I lost a giant walleye this last year on a crankbait, and I hate fish stories, but God, this thing was over 30 inches. He came up over a rock, and my daughter was on the kayak with me, and he hit it right at the boat. My heart dropped because I thought he was a musky. And the stretch we were fishing in is, it's a very musky stretch. There's a lot of skis in there. He came and ate it, and I watched him, and I was cranking on like a medium light or something like that, and I didn't really have enough of a load up because he was so close. I didn't really bury the hook, but he shook it and swam away. God, it killed me. But yeah, I'd like to catch one on the fly. I've never caught one on the fly.
Yeah, I haven't either, and and this is a total. I hate to keep saying about that Spring River. Our closest trout park is 3.5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
We're 2 hours and 32 minutes door to door to the Spring River.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, $52 gets you a true year license. So from the day you buy it until the day before, you get a year.
Yeah, it's not like you buy it in February and it's going to go till January.
Right, or it's when we go down to Louisiana, it starts in June 1st and it ends, and we're going down every October, so we're having to buy one every year, even though it's within the same calendar of 12 months.
Yeah.
And I really think more places should probably do that, but that's beside the point. Plus, you have to buy a freshwater and a saltwater tag, even if you're only in saltwater, which is kind of a bummer too. But
yeah. Anyway,
Louisiana needs to get their shit together. But we're gonna wind up floating that 3 or 4 times, and now that we're gonna have I pick up the new trailer, we're gonna go down and haul the new trailer down there and float that bigger water. And I have a feeling it's probably going to wind up being an overnight trip, because we'll probably come back up and put in and float after we've floated it at dark to try and get some of those bigger browns.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at LED lights to mount on my kayak right now.
Oh, careful with the lights. You ever night fish for browns or any kind of?
No, I just want to be able to see where I'm going.
Oh yeah.
I'm not too worried. I don't want to light up the water like I'm bow fishing. I just want to light up so I can see if I'm about to run into something.
I don't know a ton about it. I've done some nighttime fishing for trout, and I've been successful. All the guys that are gurus, though, they're like anti-light guys. Bass fishing, if you bass fish at night, you like a full moon, you like that light. Those trout guys, they're like, nope, don't want any light. They swear by it, like no light.
I just don't want to wind up inside of a big washed up log root ball with tons of copperheads and cottonmouths.
That's the battle of night fishing. Night fishing for bass on the New River, because you can use lights. You don't have to be pitch black. Yeah, that's the thing with trout. They say is the light.
Yeah, and like I said, I've never done it, but I'm not gonna risk it in a kayak. In that big of water. I mean, it's not as big as the white, but it's it's big enough water for me to worry about. It's not like the Castor where almost anywhere I fall out, I can immediately stand up and grab my kayak. It's got a pretty swift current and it's over my head deep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, but now if you get on there's a Spring River Facebook page, and there's a guide down there that night fishes, and I'm telling you, he's pulling out fish the quality of the White River. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but it's if you join it, let me know and I'll add you to it. Or if you're on Facebook, I can just find you and I can add you to it when we get on here.
Yeah,
so. All right. So we're coming up on 50 minutes on the podcast, an hour and 25 minutes on the video. So I think we've fulfilled our obligation here.
Yeah.
Even for the late start for the folks that are going to listen tonight on the when the download.
Yeah, we covered a lot of topics. Definitely like to do another talk more about some tying.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I wouldn't mind to schedule so people are hear from you again. I wouldn't mind to sit down and schedule one with you in a couple of weeks when Adam's here. And if we can get the Skype to work 3 ways, I'd love to have you have your stealth bomber tied. And I would love to sit down and talk about all that. If you've had a good time tonight, you know, I'd love to do that with you.
Yeah. I can talk all day. I talk for a living. That's what I do.
I do corporate communications. I tell lies for a living.
Tell lies. That's funny.
Oh no, we're doing our best to help you.
Doing our best to help you.
Trust me, I work for the company.
That is funny.
Oh, well, for you guys at home, I want you to check out my buddy David. Head over to NC_on-the-fly. He's got some awesome flies. You can tell he's got a passion for it. He's also, and what are you, a field rep? You're a pro staff for Vibe? What's the word?
Team, pro staff, whatever you want to call it. I just represent Vibe.
Represent Vibe.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear the beginning of it, we talked really a lot about the Vibe kayak, and I'm thinking about looking at one of those for my next kayak purchase, especially since my wife needs a kayak, and then I can choose which kayak I take depending on the water I'm going on.
Or you just say it's for the wife, and then you take it out.
Well, that's how it all works. I mean, you know, I buy her all this fly tying material, and she still hasn't tied a fly. I don't understand it.
6 fly rods. She's never used them, though. I don't know.
My name's on half of them, just in case. Oh, but this is Kayak Flyer. Before we get out of here, I wouldn't be worth my salt if I didn't go ahead and give you guys the information that helps make this possible. OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com. Some really big things coming next week. I want you guys to head over and subscribe to the Instagram, Kayak Flyer, and to the TN Trailers Instagram so that you can see some of the really exciting stuff that is coming out. And we also, not only will Dave be back, but we've got some really, really cool guests that we're working to line out. So go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe our channel. As the weather gets warmer, we've got a couple of unboxing videos to do. We've got a brand new fishing rod, the St. Croix Mojo Yak spinning rod that we're going to be doing a full review on. We're actually going to have 4 of us fish with it, and then we're all 4 going to give our reviews of it. So that's going to be a really exciting thing to do. So as I was saying, head over to Tennessee Trailers or OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com, TN Trailers on Instagram. Check those guys out. Check out our buddy Pablo. If you're worried about the earthquakes down in Puerto Rico, help Puerto Rico out by supporting Pablo at Bajuco Flats Fly Co. He offers the most affordable fiberglass, custom fiberglass fly rods starting at $125 and always guaranteed for 3 years. Head over and help some of these southern boys that we've been enjoying talking to, like our buddy Ethan down in Little Rock, Arkansas with stoneflynets.com. Some of the most beautiful handcrafted nets you're going to find. They look as good on your back as they look on the wall. He also makes display fly boxes for those of you that are avid fly tiers. And last but not least, head over to cutthroatfurledleaders.com. Save 15% with promo code kayak, and that's how you can support the show. The more you buy, the better off we are. Cutthroatfurledleaders.com. and get rid of those nasty monofilament leaders. You're going to love them. Promo code Kayak. Dave, this has been an absolute treat, and I will get with you. Will you get with me this week, or I'll get with you, and we'll find another time soon, and we're just going to talk flies, if that's all right.
Absolutely. I had a blast. Really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, it's next time.
Yeah, it's always nice to have somebody that can talk about something as far as a product that the people might be interested in, because I'm one of these guys that loves gear, and then it's always great to be able to talk about just fishing. And finding a healthy mix of that is always rough.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
All right, my friend. I appreciate it.
No problem. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.